Hey guys, it's Sarah Cray with Let's Make Art, and I teach watercolor. We do a new tutorial every week, and this week we're doing the zebra. Fun. It's fun. That's all I gotta say. We are going to be doing this project in 6 steps. So our very first step is we are going to do a light wash on the white part of the stripes to create form. Okay. Our second step is we are going to paint the muzzle. Our third step, we're going to start putting in those stripes. Our fourth step, we're going to do the ear and the hair. Fifth step, we're going to do more stripes. I split that up into 2. You don't have to, but I thought it would be good to take a stripe break. And the last step is we are going to do the eyes. We're using 2 paintbrushes for this project, around 6 and around 2. If you have other brushes you want to use, you are more than welcome to use those. Use what you have, but these are the ones that I painted the project with. We are using 4 colors. So my palette's already dirty. I just used the same palette that I used last week because watercolors reconstitute. So like, why not?
Yeah, nice.
You know what I mean?
Bonus.
So I have space blue, and I have yellow ochre, and I have orchid, and I have Payne's Cray. So we have a pretty intense outline in front of us. Look at that.
Holy stripes.
Especially when you get into this area. Now, to kind of help you guys try and figure out like what stripes are black and what parts are white, I did these kind of lines across them. But just so you guys know, don't stress. I mean, every zebra stripes are different, and if you get your things confused, it's not a big deal. But just so you know, it does take a little extra effort to like pay attention, especially when we get into the painting part. So I'm going to trace this guy, and then we will do our oath, and then we'll get into painting. Sound good?
Sounds good.
I'm going to use a, this is like a colored pencil, just a colored marker to trace because there's a lot of lines and I want to keep track of where I am. Now you're going to take your outline and tape it down to your watercolor paper using painter's tape or washi tape or whatever you have. And then you're going to take your graphite paper. This one you can see has been used and reused and loved. They get better with age, so don't just use them once and throw them out. And then place it dark shiny side down and start tracing. You guys, first give yourself a little pat on the back for doing that outline. Holy cow. I hope it's okay we sped that up for you. But good job. I feel like that's like, I feel like the outline is my least favorite part. So like I love when the outline is done because now I can get to the fun part.
That's when the real fun starts.
That's when the real fun.
When the real party begins.
Yeah. Oh, we got to do our oath.
Oh.
If you can raise your right hand and repeat after me, I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
I promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
And I promise to have fun.
Good job. Okay, so our steps. I know on the step-by-step sheet I started with the muzzle, but then when I was like going through this project and organizing this, I realized that I want to paint the shadows first because then that will dry while we do the muzzle, so then we can go straight into painting the stripes on top. Where if we did it opposite, we would have to wait for the shadow parts to dry before we can paint the black part on top. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay, great. So that's why I switched it up. Also, I just want to say there are many, many ways to approach a project. It's okay to switch it up. It's okay for you to watch through this and maybe you're like, you know what, it actually makes more sense for me to approach it this way, or I want to see what happens if I do it this way. Do it. That's great. There's so many different ways that you can try painting something. Don't feel like the way I'm showing you is the only way or the correct way. It's just the way I did it. And then I sometimes switch it up if I think it'll be easier to teach a different way. Okay?
Totally.
Okay, let's get started. So I'm going to grab my round 6 and I'm going to mix like kind of a brownish gray color. And what I'm doing here is on the white part on the zebras, we need to put in a little bit of a darker value to show that there's form. So even something that is white or something that is black is going to have highlights or different values in there because it's a three-dimensional object. So we need to kind of shape the cheeks a little bit. We need to show that the neck is underneath the head and farther away. We have a little bit of shadows going on over here, and so those are all in your outline, but that's what we're doing here. So I'm going to grab my 6 and I'm going to mix a little bit of ochre and a little bit of orchid together. And that's pretty pink, so I'm going to grab some more yellow ochre. And then I'm going to grab a little bit of Payne's Gray to like tone it down. Gray that brown up a little bit. And you guys can decide, maybe you want this to be just gray, maybe you want it to have a little bit of color. I chose for mine to have like kind of a brownish tint because I feel like if you look at zebras, sometimes the white part on their body, some areas have like a yellow or brown tint. So that's why I went with that color, but you're free to change up colors as you see fit. So I have my brown gray, and I'm gonna start with underneath the neck, or the chin, I'm sorry, like that little jawbone right there. And then I'm just gonna take water and blend it out. Now you can see I'm painting over the stripes, and since we're painting them black, that's okay to do that. And it usually is okay to do that if you know that you're gonna paint over an area that's gonna have a darker value, or you can avoid it. Like, it's really up to you. So I'm gonna start with that and just kind of blend out until it's a smooth transition. Then we're gonna let that dry. And I'm gonna do it kind of on the side of the face here. You can kind of see my dashed lines a little bit. The benefit of just going over the lines, the black areas, is it would be easier to get a smooth transition. But if you were to like want to leave a highlight in those black areas, then you wouldn't have that option anymore. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Do you think a zebra does a neigh like a horse or a bray like a donkey?
Donkey. I have no...
You just decided that?
I just decided. I don't know if that's true.
They're kind of shaped like donkeys. They're shorter.
Yeah.
You know? I
don't know why, but when you see... And then there's another one kind of up here on the side underneath the mane. You know those pictures? Like, I keep it in my head, I'm seeing pictures of zebras doing like, you know, when they're...
yeah.
You know, like they're like...
Making the sound?
Yes. And so when I see that picture, I think of a donkey bray instead of a horse neigh. And that is the only thing I'm basing this off of.
It's a good, that's a good base of knowledge.
That's all I got.
I don't have any idea what they sound like.
Okay, so I started putting my shadows in. I'm gonna do one more run underneath my jaw because I wanna make it really clear that the neck is farther away than the head. So I'm giving myself that kind of spatial pushback that we would need, and also to show. The other thing I want to point out is it's a little bit darker in the center here, and then it gets lighter on the right hand side and a little bit on the left, and that's because we want to show that it's rounded. Okay, so don't do like a totally even wash in that chunk like a coloring book. Don't do that. Like, kind of let it blend out. And I just like to use water to do that. Okay, that's a good starting spot. And I'm just gonna blend this out a little bit more. Okay, now we can start on the muzzle. So there's a couple dark areas that I want to point out. One is going to be the nostril, one is going to be right underneath this mouth line, and then right here on the tip of this nose is gonna be the darkest areas. So the majority of this painting is actually Payne's Gray with a little bit of slate blue in there. So I'm gonna mix that together. And the reason why I did that is because I like it when blacks have undertones of blues or purples instead of just grays. I feel like it makes the painting feel more full or vibrant. You could get away with using just Payne's Gray if you wanted, or just black, but I think that there is a richness added to paintings when you change value by hue instead of just that same color value. Does that make sense?
Totally.
By introducing other colors in there, it brings a fullness or a richness to it. Okay, so I have my super dark. I'm still using my 6, and I'm gonna start by painting that tip of the nose in. Okay, and then I'm gonna dip my brush, hit it off the side so it's not too wet, and just take that same dark color and blend to my stripes. Now I am going to avoid the, what would like the nostril ring, I guess, area?
Or just nostril.
Well, I thought the nostril was just like the hole. What's the area called around the hole?
Let's see if Steve knows, then I'll Google it.
Okay. Steve, we're counting on you. Anyways, avoid that whole ring, because I want that to be a lighter value to show that it's popping off of the muzzle. So I'm just not going to paint it right now. And if you want to give yourself a little bit of help when you go to paint the stripes, if you want to start painting some of these stripes a little bit to kind of like give yourself a head start, does that make sense? Like you'll know which stripes to paint.
I was looking up what nostril meant, so I can't tell you if it makes sense or not.
I'm going to trust myself and say it made sense.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, great.
Nostril is in fact the passageway and or the lateral walls.
So it's both? Or just the passageway?
Inside.
It's just inside?
Yes. I'm going to Google edge of nose name.
Could you do like nostril skin?
Nasal dorsum, also known as the nasal ridge, is the border between the root and the tip of the nose. That's oh dear. Ooh, nose anatomy.
Okay, so I'm going to let that dry for a second. And I'm going to paint the bottom mouth. I'm going to leave a thin white line between and make sure that I'm painting a darker value too, because that upper lip is going to be casting a shadow on that bottom lip, and we want to show that they're separated pieces, right?
It's just called skin.
Just skin. Okay, so avoid the nostril skin. Would it be the same on an animal?
I don't know.
Okay.
I can find out though. Let me use the Google. It's my best friend.
Okay, and here on my, I think I overpainted the muzzle a little bit on that nose, so the shape is slightly different. You can just, 2 options. You can just leave it and just be fine with it and be like, this is the shape of this zebra's muzzle. It is what it is. Or I can try and reshape it and just make it bigger. I don't want to make it too big because I'm afraid that that would actually be more distracting than having this be slightly off, but I am going to adjust the angle a little bit. So I'm going to do that, and then this needs to be brought down more. Okay. Sometimes I just get a little bit messy when I'm painting and I go outside my lines. Okay. Now we'll come back to that and finish up the area, but we kind of just want to let this dry for a minute. Sometimes in watercolor, if an area is wet and you're just working on it over and over, it kind of like stops doing anything because it's just too wet. And now we're going to start filling in our black stripes. So we're on step 3, you guys.
There's no definitive answer.
Okay. I also noticed, like for me, I put a little bit of yellow ochre on like the very edge of this when it's starting to go into stripes, because again, I felt like where it was really dark black on zebras and transitioning to the white areas, there was this kind of in between that had edges of brown or yellow or something in there. So I introduced a little bit of yellow ochre in there. You don't have to do that, but that was my thinking of just when I was looking at some pictures of zebras. Please know, I know I say this, but I just want to remind you, your painting does not have to look like mine. You are the artist here. You get to make decisions of colors. So maybe you're not even using black. Maybe you're doing a rainbow zebra, which would be way awesome.
Yeah, it would.
Okay. And then I'm just going to blend out that little color that I added to the muzzle on the corners, around the edges. Okay. Now, one thing I want you to pay attention to as we're doing those stripes on the side of the face is wherever there's a shadow on the white part, I want the black part to be the darkest on that area, because that same form or shadow that is on the three-dimensional form would be true to the white areas as well as the black areas. Okay, so if on the white areas there's a shadow here, then on the black areas there would also be a shadow there. So I'm going to take my Payne's Gray Blue mix, and I'm going to make sure that where the black overlaps on the shadows, that is where my darkest darks are going to be on that stripe. Okay, and then I'm going to rinse my brush and blend out the rest of the stripe. Still kind of keeping that darkest value right in the center to follow that form. Now, if your yellow ochre is getting a little too green, if you just do a little bit of a soft orchid over it, that will help tone down the green. So let's say this area is looking really green where I dropped in the the ochre. Man, those two words are really similar. I'm just gonna take a little bit of orchid and do a little wash on top of it. You might have to wait a little bit more for it to be dry. And that's gonna tone down the green and make it more of a brown. Kind of like how we mixed our brown in the very beginning. See how it took that green away?
Lovely.
So great. I love it when that happens.
It's amazing that it can happen.
I know. Color theory is so insane.
It's wild.
Okay. And now, just keep on going. Now another technique that you can use, and I've noticed this with watercolor, is that if I want an area to be really, really, really dark, I paint the area first in a thin layer of water, and then I drop in my color. And I have noticed that when I do it that way, the blacks tend to stay darker. However, I would like to caution you that if you put too much water though, then you'll have puddles on your paper. And so that's why sometimes that wet on wet technique is a little bit tricky, because you have to make sure you don't have so much water. If you have too much water, it's just really easy to get messy. Here, I'm gonna do it. So when I do this, I get my paintbrush wet. I hit it off the side of my cup, as well as touch it on my paper towel 1 or 2 times to make sure that it's just damp. And then using just the damp brush, I paint the area. And then when it's still wet, I drop in my dark. And I kind of guide it along. And that color is going to go wherever there's water.
Which is really fun to watch.
So that's one of my favorite. And then also sometimes when you do that, then you tend to get some really cool like washes or blooms because you're utilizing that wet on wet technique. And I love like those accidental elements that happen. So I don't know, it just gives me opportunity to have like cool stuff happen. As well, it keeps it pretty dark. And then you might want to switch to your round 2 when you're getting into like these thin stripes here. And if you need any further information on doing thin lines, wet on wet technique, anything like that, we have an entire beginner series where we go over different techniques, different warm-ups, the language, all of that kind of fun stuff. So if you need to refer to that, that's just on our YouTube channel for you guys to use for you whenever you want. So I used to include them all, and I realize it's like really similar information being shared over and over again, which isn't bad, but okay. So I just want to point out, like, for me, I love what's happening on this stripe more than I love what's happening on this stripe because I'm getting these gorgeous like bleeding. Do you see that a little bit?
Yeah, totally.
Oh, I love it. This one has it, not as much. I do love that there's like an undertone of blue on this stripe though, like blue-green almost, turquoise.
I saw that.
Which is lovely.
It is
I
lovely.
love it. I'm gonna keep it. Okay. It is at this moment that I'm telling myself I probably want to start on the left-hand side and move across. So I don't like smear, but I got to be careful of this guy because it's still wet. So like, it's just, there's scariness happening. Okay, so now I have a thicker stripe kind of in the middle. I'm going to go to the middle and I'm going to use that same technique of doing a light wash first. And you can see that all of these stripes kind of meet up in the forehead, right? They're kind of all, it's like paint got like dripped here and it's just kind of following the shape of the zebra's head. That's how I feel like the stripes are.
Now we're painting it in.
Yeah. Okay, and then I'm going to take my dark, and I'm going to have it be darkest where it's meeting right here. And then you can also help it go. So I'm just kind of using water and whatever color is left on my brush to kind of like paint in the rest. And if you want to like do strong undertones of blue, you can. Like if I just did a little extra space blue on my brush and kind of drop it in.
Ooh, that's nice. That almost made the dark color look more purple.
Yeah, yeah.
Ooh, I like that.
Ooh, now that has like a multicolored feel to it.
Yeah.
Gosh, I love it. But you don't have to do that. If you don't like, if you want it to be straight, just like undertones of gray, you can do that. But I will say that the more we paint these stripes, and if we do little hints of that there, when it's all done, those blue areas that are feeling really blue right now will actually read more as gray because our brains will be like zebra, black and white, got it, moved on. You know what I mean? So if you like put down something and you think that it's too bright, it sometimes is not too bright. You have to like keep painting it and like do the rest of it and it will like make sense. I don't know how to explain that any further.
No, I think you did a good job.
Okay. I do want to make sure though that my transitions are smooth, because I don't want it to feel I don't want it to be distracting, the areas that are super dark and the areas that are not super dark. Okay. And then I think this black, when I first painted it, it ran into my other zebra line a little bit. That's okay. I'm just gonna pull it away from it. I got lost. Hold on. Oh, I'm just gonna keep on going. That's the thing I have to tell myself, especially in like when I'm painting thin lines like this. When I get lost in a step, I just have to be like, just keep on going. Because if I like try and focus too hard on where I am and I can't figure it out, I get like super frustrated, and that's not fun for anybody. So then I just have to be like, okay, we'll move on to another area, or just like give yourself like 5 seconds to figure it out. And if you can't figure it out, make a decision and move on.
Power through.
Power through it, because that is really hard when you like are so focused and you can't find where you are. And then, but if you let that get the best of you, then like your painting, it's not as fun the rest of the time.
Don't give your painting that kind of power.
Yeah. Be like, I am the boss here, not the outline. Me.
Meh.
So again, I'm using my round 2 on these stripes. And I just want to give you guys the power to make decisions. It doesn't have to look exactly like mine. Zebras are striped differently from each other. Nobody is going to say that one stripe looks a little bit thinner than the other stripe. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Nobody's going to say that.
No, maybe me.
Well, Keenan.
Is that stripe supposed to be there?
You would say something like that. Okay, now they're kind of all meeting up. This part right here is the hardest part, just so you guys know.
So it's almost over.
For the hard part, yeah, because these ones, the stripes are like, oh yeah, okay, I can figure that out. But just when they're nice and like tiny and like thin and gathered in one area, you're like, wait, what is what? Okay. Sorry, I had to see where I was. Okay, now I see.
You're in the studio.
You're teaching a class.
Teaching a class. You're painting. You're using a round 2.
Also known as a Brock.
A Brock. A real Brock. We've got to name the bell.
We do have to name the bell. What do you guys think we should name it? Ugh! Paint it into my white stripe. This is what y'all do. Can you see that?
Yes.
Okay. I'm going to try and lighten it while it's wet. Didn't work because it's too dark. Okay? So you can do one of 2 things. You can leave it. You can use bleed-proof white and go back in with the bleed-proof white and just paint. You can also do white acrylic, whatever. Just paint that one area, cover it up. The bad thing about that is those paints are opaque, And sometimes you have to do multiple layers to make sure that paint underneath this black mark is completely hidden. Sometimes doing that so much will make the mark more obvious, because then it's like, why is there an acrylic white paint dot on your painting? So you got to balance that a little bit. Second option is to use a magic eraser, and a Mr. Clean magic eraser, softly rub. I would not suggest doing that because it's so close to like this big pile of black paint, where if that little dot was like randomly over here, that's what I would use. That's what I would do to clean it up. Your third option is to leave it and just be like, nobody's probably gonna see that in that mess of stripes anyway, which is most likely true. Or you can just thicken the area and adjust your stripe line to absorb that mark.
Nailed it.
There we go. Now you can't even tell.
Never happened.
So just know that like all of those options are always there whenever you're painting something. And depending on what's going on in the painting, one might be better than the other. So don't feel like, I know that sometimes people with who are painting watercolor think that like once you put something down, there's nothing you can do about it. That's kind of true, but not totally true. There are tricks that we can use to hide it, to cover it up, to take it away. The Mr. Clean Magic Eraser is one of my favorites. So just know that like the biggest thing is to not like freak out so much, because watercolor actually is can be manipulated if it's still wet. And if you take the time to like yell at yourself and get mad, that paint is drying, and that will just make trying to clean it up harder on you. So usually when I make mistakes, I go like, oh, and then I like quickly have to go into problem solving mode, because time is of the essence with watercolor, you know?
Totally. I totally know what you're talking about.
Are you making fun of me?
No.
Oh, that was just like...
Very matter of fact.
Yeah.
It was kind of maybe a little, not making fun of you, just like, I don't paint often enough to really know. So I was like, you know, I totally know what you're saying.
Oh, okay. So you were making fun of me.
Well. No. Making fun of me.
Okay. We're doing good, you guys. We're keeping in there. We're getting close to the top of the head.
It'd be awesome if you did a front face zebra.
Yeah.
And gave him like a really aggressive middle part on the top of his head.
So it looked like...
Like business zebra.
That would be awesome. Okay. I know that that little turquoise color was accidental, but gosh, I love it.
Can't beat it.
I really love it.
Can't beat the accidental colors.
There and there. It's like... And that's why we gotta leave room, you know what I mean? Like, in this, it's cool, it's like brown and then like kind of blue underneath, but that, it's like, oh, you want a little bit of green in there? You know? It's just
welcome.
Cool.
It is cool.
Give yourself room to like, have those accidents and then like, appreciate them for what they are. Instead of being like, oh, that's not what the reference photo is. You know what? I think this is cooler than the reference photo, so I'm keeping it, you know?
Totally. Now, you did say that the more paint you put down, those colors will be less
obvious.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I mean, already, I feel like if you were to just come and look at this, unless I like pointed it out, you might not even really totally see it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's the funny thing about colors too, is like, once you point out an area, it's hard to unsee it. But if that area was never pointed out, would you have noticed it in the first place? You know?
Totally. Those always trip me up.
It reminds me of, do you remember that dress? Of like, what color is this dress? Like
Yes.
turquoise and brown or white and gold?
Yes.
What do you think it was?
Well, I always saw turquoise and brown.
No way!
Yeah.
I saw that as white and gold, like 100%.
That's crazy.
Like, I don't know how people saw turquoise and brown on that. I tried really hard to, like, see it.
I, like, squinted my eyes trying to trick myself. It didn't ever work.
What did you guys see? Let us know what you
tell us
saw
what you
on that
saw.
dress. If you don't know what we're talking about,
We don't know how to describe it.
it's a picture of a dress.
Yeah.
The lighting is kind of weird. And so some people see white and gold and some people see turquoise and brown. For me, the white and gold, it's obviously shadowed. Like, it's not in direct light. The light is like behind it or something.
Yeah.
So that's why I saw it as that. But I'm curious.
Do you think you were right?
I mean, is my name Sarah Cray? Do I ever think I'm wrong? No, I'm just kidding. I'm just teasing. I mean, I think so. Is my...
Plot twist, the dress is red.
Everybody's wrong.
Everyone's wrong.
But, like, is my view more valid than yours? I don't think so.
I can't fix my eyes, Sarah.
Wrong. It's just what I yell at you. Wrong. Well, I pretty much did that with the crunchy cereal, but, like,
Yeah, you did.
I'm standing by that
You
one.
attacked me because of that.
Okay. Still going down here. Working my way. I'm going to do a little bit darker down here. And the reason I'm putting a little bit of a darker edge on, like, the edge of this zebra is because I want it to feel like the form is going away from the light and going in and under. So that would have a slightly darker value on the end of it because of that. If you don't have enough room in your transition to add this, I don't think it will take away from your painting, so don't stress. Okay. It's going well, I think. Also, side note, zebras, or when you're painting animals in general, I like to paint my eyes last for the most part. That is going to make them look really creepy until the very last step. So I try not to do that as much anymore because I recognize that as a teacher that, like, people were feeling like their animals were bad because they looked weird. But it's only because we didn't have eyes. That's why. But with this one, because we're working, there's so much black and white around the eye. I want to make sure that I'm doing it, like, right and everything is dry when I go into it. So this one I made sure to do last. But don't feel like your zebra is going to look bad, is what I'm saying. That's what I'm trying to tell you. And it's mostly because they don't have an eyeball.
Possibly possessed.
Yeah. Okay, now we're going to take a break from the stripes because sometimes you just need a break from things. And we're going to do the ears and the hair. So for the ears, I'm going to start with the center of the ears, which are going to be the darkest dark. And I'm going to do just water. Okay, and then take my Payne's Gray, drop it in there. And you can let the edges, like, go outside the coloring. I mean, there's hair around on these edges, so, like, there would be hair, like, coming in and messing up that, like, black line. So don't think it's a perfect black line because it's not. It can get a little bit messy. Okay, then I'm going to rinse my brush. And if you still have brown on your palette from doing that, you can grab a little bit of brown or gray or whatever color you want. And I'm just going to do kind of a wash around the ears. I'm going to try not to touch the center of my black, However, if you touch it and that black bleeds a little bit, some of my favorite blooms in ears are when that happens, okay? So don't stress if that happens. And I might do it a little bit just to see. Let's try it. Maybe watch this first before you guys decide if you want to do this or not. So I'm kind of going in. Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
Oh snap.
Isn't that kind of cool?
That's super cool.
It just, I don't know.
Looks way cooler on the side cam, just saying.
And then if that happened, maybe if you did it by accident, what I do, I'm gonna leave the one on the right hand side because that was just a little bit and it has a nice little, this now just looks like a dot right in the middle of my ear, right? Which I'm not saying that's bad, but if I feel like I don't want that there, I can just take a damp brush and lift.
Why did you do that? That was so pretty.
I kept the one on the right.
But that one was, I had named it. We were friends.
You were I ruined it.
Oh no.
Okay, I'm doing a little bit more brown. And then I also like to, while it's nice and wet, I like to do a little black tip on there. Oh, it must have dried because it's not blending out. That's okay. Put some water on there. So just kind of like play with it. I'm going to switch my 2 for the edge line. Let it get a little bit messy. Make friends with the blooms. And then erase them. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just kidding.
And send a picture to Keenan
because
he likes soggy cereal.
That's what you get.
Now how do you feel about your bad decisions?
Okay, so there's one ear, and the other one is angled, so it's not going to look the same. Obviously, we're seeing it from a different perspective. But I'm just going to take my brown. Again, looking at different zebras, I saw some brown in some of the white areas. You don't have to add that to yours. Here I'm just letting the black kind of graze my brush as I'm painting around it. Let it kind of softly bleed out. Then I'm going to do that black tip.
That's spread out nicely.
Yeah, that looks good. Kind of were some like brown spots here on the back. Really just like paint it in, be loose, have fun with it. Oh, did a little water drop. Let me pick that up. Okay, and the hair is actually really fun to paint. So what I did for the hair is I'm going to switch to my 6. And using just water, I'm going to paint the area. And again, don't feel like you have to go off the outline exactly. Hairs are thinner than this, so like they're chunked up, but then you're going to have some that like splay. So you can do this part with your round 6 and then go in with your round 2 and kind of thin it out a little bit at the top. So it's nice and wet. And I'm going to grab my black and space blue mixture. And I'm just going to, kind of where the black stripes are, I'm going to drop in some of that black. And it's just going to go. So we're really embracing the wet on wet technique here, because their fur also is white and black, white, black, striped. So I'm putting in kind of my black areas now. And you just get such beautiful textures. Like, look at those blooms. And then on the white parts, this is where I'm switching to my round 2. I'm going to introduce just hints of brown, but like very light value brown. And then this is where I'm going to do my little hairs. So this part is going to look different for everybody because everyone's like colors will blend and bleed differently. But I thought that this was like a really fun, loose way to approach how to do this kind of like multicolored burr. What are you okay, Keenan?
I'm good, thank you.
And then if you need to grab some like dark colors to do some more defined.
He looks like he woke up on the wrong side of the bed.
It does look pretty spiky, huh? Maybe I went too far with the textures.
No,
I'm going to soften some of
good.
these. Okay. And then for this front one, since it's such a small piece of like mane that's peeking through, I'm just going to use my round 2 with my black and do these hairs right there. If you wanted to do that wet on wet technique there too, you can. I felt like that area was too small to be able to really control it. Okay. Oh, gosh. I love how that like moved through. I know that that's not true to how it would be, but dang, it looks cool, you know? Okay. Let's do the nose too, and then we'll do the rest of the body. So I'm going to do a thin layer of water on the nostril part. And it's gray because my water is now gray, but that's okay since I don't really need to like leave an area white. And I'm going to drop in, on the left-hand side is where I'm going to drop in that color. Because even in this nostril hole, there's a value change, okay? So I'm gonna let that dry for a little bit. I'm gonna do another little layer right underneath the lip. I'm gonna revisit this area on the nose. Do another little dark wash now that it's dried. And I'll go in and blend out the skin, nostril skin. I don't want to do that yet because I want to make sure that nostril is nice and dry. So we'll come back to it. I am going to paint around the eye right now though, not do the eyeball, but just the black stripe around the eye because I want to make sure that area is dry when it's time for me to actually paint the eyeball. Okay, let's keep on going with our black stripes. Now we're on step 5. We're almost done, you guys. I'm going to try and introduce that turquoise color a little bit more in some of my stripe areas because I just really love how that turned out. And I don't know, I kind of want to keep that color feeling a little bit. So kind of on these lighter value areas, I'm going to mix a little bit of yellow ochre in. Just kind of drop it in, and that's going to give me a green-blue feel. Again, now we're kind of getting to an area that has value changes. So I'm kind of just dropping in the color, letting it kind of blend out, helping it move along if it's not spreading as much as I would like it to spread. But again, I don't have to paint a solid color or a solid value on the stripes. We can let there be that variation because that is true to what we would see. That's true to form.
I'd like to apologize. I accidentally hit the top cam with the side cam.
Oh, did it get a little?
Got a little shaky. So I'm really sorry.
Keenan, get it together, man.
Yes, ma'am.
Just kidding. Man, that blue, black, little green right here. Ugh. I love that. If you notice that you're having a hard time getting a tip on your round 6, you might just have too much water. So like, if you're looking at fine lines and doing thin lines, pay attention to how much water and how much paint is actually being held in your brush. Because if it's full, then it's going to be difficult for you to get a thin line. Where like, if you kind of bat that on your paper towel, you can get a nice crisp line with this round 6. Or you could just use your round 2, but I like to give you guys options.
Thanks.
I'm gonna just drop in more of that green because that blue green, I just really love it. Keenan, why? I remember you telling me that zebras were your favorite animal when you were younger.
Yeah.
Why is that?
I liked that they were 2 different colors.
I mean, but like a lot of animals are different colors.
They were also related to horses.
Okay.
I don't know if I had any specific reason. I was just drawn to zebras for some reason.
You're like, you see that animal's got it going on.
Yeah, like that's my jam sandwich.
You're like, if I could be black and white striped, I would be.
I'd be all about it. I just like zebras. And then I ended up getting more into owls.
Owls?
Yeah.
Why owls?
Owls were really cool. I think the first owl that I thought was really neat was called a burrow owl. Burrow owl. Because it burrows into the ground. It like lives there.
Okay.
Yeah, so I thought that was really interesting. I was like, wait, how many kinds of owls are there? And there are a lot. An end of story.
That's it.
Yeah.
I was gonna like brace to see if you knew like.
No, I've
how
since
many?
lost all of my zebra and owl knowledge.
Zebras.
Zebras are more related to donkeys, though.
They are.
They are. I researched that.
I wonder what noise. So they do bray a little bit more.
I would assume that. I haven't listened to it yet.
But we will.
Yeah.
And we'll know. Again, you guys, just keep on keeping on, dropping in that color, blending it out, letting there be different values, maybe different pops of other colors. Don't be afraid.
Your whisper reminded me of a song.
What song?
I don't think people are prepared for it, so I'll just tell you about it later.
Okay.
Well, It's called Shia LaBeouf. Google it at your own risk.
Oh, I have absolutely seen that.
You have?
Yeah.
It is hilarious.
Yeah.
My nephews play it on repeat. It is so funny.
How old are your nephews?
The ones in particular that I'm referring to are a certain age in their life.
Ooh, Keenan. That's embarrassing.
I have 45 nieces and nephews.
You have 45 nieces?
45.
I'm sorry. We have to pause. 45 nieces and nephews?
There are 47 grandchildren. 2 of them are mine. I have 8 siblings, 2 of which have 8 children.
I am dying. I don't know what to do. What do you... What?
I can name them by family, but I can't name them by age.
What does that look like when you're all together?
It looks like 63-ish people all together. And then,
I feel like that's the whole town of Hamilton.
well, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, I knew how many siblings you had, but I guess I didn't realize how many children your siblings had.
Yeah.
That is wild.
It is wild. But if that gives me any like freedom to forget ages, I feel like...
not. It's still
okay,
unacceptable.
well.
Just kidding. I'll give you a pass this time because that
I'm
is
pretty sure they're 14 and 12.
a lot of
It's a lot of children.
a lot of
people.
knowledge, a lot of people. Okay, I finished up my stripes, and before I move on to my very last step, my eye, I just kind of want to take a minute and see if there's anything that I need to go back on, anything I want to adjust. I'm going to do the nostril really quick. So using my round 6, and it's just damp, I'm going to take the pigment that's already there, or the color that's already there around, and I'm just gonna paint in the white part, leaving like a really thin white edge on the top part. Don't blend so much though that you lose your nostril shape. If you do, that's fine. Just go back in after it dries and repaint the area. You want it to be more pronounced kind of on the top part than the bottom. And then this one, I feel like this big U kind of here is a little aggressive, so I'm going to soften that and make this nostril shadow come out a little bit more. There we go. Now we got a nice nostril shape. I'm also going to blend in this white line. You don't have to if you don't want to. There we go. And then I'm going to let that dry. It's always a good idea when you blend out an area to let it dry and then revisit it later after it's dried to make sure you don't have to do another layer on top of it somewhere. Okay, now I'm going to really pay attention to like my shadows that I put in on the first step, because I really feel like your paintings inform itself as it goes. And even though we did a step 1, since that was the very first thing we did, and now we painted pretty much the rest of it, I want to go back to that area and make sure that it's like where I want it to be, value-wise, color-wise, things like that. I do want to do, like looking at it, I do want to do a little bit of a darker shadow right underneath the chin, so I'm just going to do another layer. But now you just got to be careful because you got to work around the black stripes. I'm going to add another layer of like gray. Okay. And I kind of want to see, I mean, like, I love this turquoise blue color that came out. I kind of just want to see what happens if I did orchid over on top of it though. Just because I like to utilize this time to experiment with things that you guys can see, and that way you guys can decide what you want to do. You know what I mean?
Yes, I do.
So I'm going to do it. I fell in love with this color. If this was just mine, I would leave it. But I want to show you what could happen if you weren't to leave it. If maybe you did paint this and you didn't like that color. So I'm picking up straight orchid. And I'm just gonna do a wash across those areas. See how that totally neutralized that green?
Yeah.
Ah! I love colors. Okay. Okay. Oh. Okay, it's okay, Sarah. It's just a painting. It's just a piece of paper.
What if you were like, okay, do these changes, Keenan, and I came and changed all the things. That way you could just stress about it from a distance.
That way I can be like...
That's not what I was thinking.
But I just want to show you guys how much of this is really in your control, and like you can adjust things as you go, and maybe you wouldn't know how to go about doing that. So I feel like this is like a little experiment where I can show you guys different options on different things, and you can pick one that works for you.
Oh no, I really like that orchid.
That little orchid hint right there?
Yes.
Yeah, that turned out really cool, huh? And maybe you have both. Maybe you have some areas that are a little bit hints of turquoise or hints of green and a little bit hints of the orchid. Like, there's no wrong way. It's whatever you want to do. So, Keenan, you know I recently got a Peloton.
Yes.
So I've been working out. And there's a teacher on there, and she says this thing, and I'm like, oh my gosh, that's like totally what I can say too. And she's like, I'm going to give you ingredients. You can cook whatever you want.
Oh.
Yeah. And I was just like, that's like so perfect. So I like want to show you the different options. I'm showing you the ingredients, and you guys can take those ingredients, take this information that I'm giving you or options, and decide what you want to make with it. Or
what a cool phrase.
I know. She's like, as long as you stay in the kitchen with me, we'll be good. And I'm like,
dang.
yeah. And if you have a Peloton, that teacher is Tunde. She is awesome. I really like her. But anyways, she always says that, and I was just like, I feel like that is such a great way to explain like teaching and options and utilizing information in whatever way you see fit. Because it's you. It's like your body, and it's your painting, and it's your life. Okay. So you'll see the areas where I did that layer of orchid, that one kind of stayed a little bit more pronounced, but I really love how that color turned out. Here, it kind of just neutralized the area, so there's not like one strong color over the other, I feel. This one, I can do the same thing. So just letting you guys know, you have the power to do what you want to do.
I've got the power.
Yeah. I was so hoping you would do that.
That was hard for me to hit that note.
It was I thought it was great.
Thank you.
Okay, and then I'm going to do another little wash here, because on my reference photo, that's pretty dark. When I was painting it, it seemed dark, but then I painted really dark values all around it, which automatically made it feel lighter. So this is what I mean by like, go back and recheck some of your first steps, because your painting will inform you as you go of what you need to do. Again, you just got to work around the black stripes. And then there's an area right here. Do you see on that reference photo where the white, it's smeared a little bit?
Yep.
I love it when that happens. I do. I love it. So sometimes I do it on purpose if it hasn't happened accidentally, where I'm like, oh, I'm just going to paint this area wet here. And then like, oh, I'll just drop in some of that. Oh, darn. You know, like, I just feel like it adds personality or something to it.
Does.
So like, it's okay to go back in if you painted something really nice and you're kind of sad that like no accidental happy accident happened. We can sometimes fudge that a little bit and be like, oh darn, oh it bled out, darn. You know, it's kind of cool.
That is cool.
So
Nice.
don't be afraid to get a little bit messy. I mean, this is watercolor. That's the fun of it. There was someone in the group actually who painted, gosh, I think it was the cityscape. she wasn't loving it. So she just took a spray bottle and just did a couple squirts. And so it gave it this like dreamy, fuzzy look. It looked way cool. And she loved it after. And I just thought like,
I missed that one.
like sometimes you gotta just like mess it up.
Yeah.
Okay. Now we are going to do the eye. Switch to your round 2. Keenan, you in for close-up?
Oh, it's in there.
Okay. Before I do the eye, I want to do one more. Now that you're focused on the eye, I'm switching the area. Can you see that in the close-up cam?
That was great. Good placement.
I'm just going to do one more swoop of a dark value on the nostril here. There we go. Okay. Now we're ready to do the eye. So I'm going to paint the area using water. If you have trouble controlling your water amount on your brush, then don't do this part. Just paint it in with the black and blue paint simultaneously. If you feel good about your water control, then do a thin layer of water and then drop in the color. And the reason why I say this is this area is so tight. And it's the eye, so we want to make sure it's precise. And if you do like a big pool of water right there, it's going to be really difficult for you to control that shape. So leave a really thin white edge on the bottom because that's the eyelid. And then it kind of actually matches up with the black stripe at the end and also at the beginning. Okay, so this is our eye. And now we have to put in the eyelashes. So what I did for the eyelashes after I painted this black is I did little, and I'll do this on a scratch paper so you can see. Am I in the right spot?
Yes.
So if this is my eye shape, okay, and I just painted that in, but I still have this white spot at the beginning, I'm going to kind of go in and do little wisps like this. Okay?
Okay.
So that is what I'm going to do. So really, really light pressure. It's like you're barely grazing your paintbrush across this area. You're really just pulling color from the paint that you just laid down. So don't feel like you need to have paint on your brush. There.
Nice.
And now it's just like the highlights of the eyelashes, just that light hitting the eyelashes. That's really kind of what we're trying to leave here. We're not actually painting in eyelashes. Does that make sense?
Totally.
We're kind of like painting around them almost. Yes. Yes.
That is cool.
And then if you feel like your white eyelid line is too thick, like mine's maybe a little bit thick, I'm going to go in on the stripe part and thin it out just a little bit. The tricky thing with leaving like glares in the spots and like white eyelids and stuff like that is if that section or area is too white or wide, it will then actually change the shape of the eye. So a glare could actually look like the white of the eyeball or something like that. You know what I mean? So just be aware. We're done.
Nice.
What is this zebra's name, Keenan?
Tony.
Tony. No. I'm sorry, because whenever you say Tony, I think of Tony the tiger.
I know, that's the first thing I thought of too. But
actually, that's funny though.
Tony the zebra.
That's funny.
Yeah.
You're funny.
Thanks.
Okay, it's Tony the zebra. Love it. Okay. If you painted this with us, thank you so much for taking the time, doing something for you, doing something fun and creative. Remember, it's not about doing something perfectly. It's about trying something new and taking the time to create and exploring something or just having fun. That's what we're here to do. So thank you for doing that with us. I really enjoy it. If you need any of these supplies, you can find them at letsmakeart.com. If you want to share what you painted, you can post it on Instagram at Let's Go Make Art or hashtag Let's Make Art. We also have a Facebook group that I talked about earlier during the tutorial. That's called Let's Make Art Watercolor. Really fun, supportive place to see what people are making with their paintings and projects and what they're making in their own art. Like taking this information, taking the ingredients, cooking a whole nother meal. Does that work?
Boom. Instead of biscuits and gravy, we get roast.
That works. How far can we really get this?
Oh, I
to
could
go?
just keep going. I'm really cooking up what you're dishing out.
Okay, so thanks for painting with me. Thanks for being awesome. Keenan, good job. And I'll
Thank
see
you.
you guys next week. Bye.